Introducing this year's most sought-after rookie, the M&T Bank Jets debit card. This superstar is sure to be charging through checkout lines all season long.
Hey, Jets fans, you got to get your hands on the M&T Jets debit card. Rush into any M&T Bank branch today or learn more by clicking the banner. M&T Bank, the official community bank of your New York Jets. Offers subject to change and certain restrictions, conditions, and fees may apply. Member FDIC.
Talk shoes. Recorded live.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Travis and Vic's Drunken Horror Adventures. This is Travis. I am happy to be here and drunk, I have to say.
What's up, everybody? I'm Vic. I was drunk last night, and I'm drinking again tonight, and let's drink.
So, our serial killer quote of the day on our nice little app from Johnny, who came on this show once upon a time, it's funny, it was a Dahmer quote. So how appropriate is that today that we're talking about the Milwaukee Cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer, a guy who really, when you talk about people like Bundy and Gacy, yeah, they existed during our lifetime, but we're talking about notoriety, Dahmer.
Yeah, no doubt. I've said it plenty of times before, and Dahmer is he's the serial killer of our generation. And I think that's why, you hear more about him, and people fear the things that Dahmer did, and it's because we lived through it. We saw the news clippings. We've seen him get murdered. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And it was one of those things where I remember it being on the news and things like that. And that'll be some things that we get into for sure. Once upon a time, Vic, here a few months ago, we ran a poll, and the poll, of course, was, which serial killer should we talk about on such and such date? And, there were really only two people that were at the top, and it was Bundy and it was Dahmer. And, these are two guys who were right up there with the most notorious, and, we determined that Bundy was Bundy was probably the most notorious in United States history. But, Dahmer's got to be right there with Gacy, right?
Oh, yeah. I put them definitely 1, 2, 3, and, Gacy and Dahmer are right there neck and neck, in my opinion. I don't know how you couldn't even think that. And some of the things that Dahmer did, he was just a sick man.
He was, and kind of like Bundy, there's really no good reason for it. You know what I mean? There wasn't any big event in his life that triggered this thing, and those are some things we'll definitely get into later. By the way, our buddy R.J. Harris will be calling from Florida, so if you see a Florida number, you know who it is. Now, some things to talk about real quick. Dahmer was a guy who obviously was known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. And, Vic, I believe this is our first cannibal we've talked about. We can speculate about Ed Gein all we want, but we know for a fact Dahmer was a cannibal, so technically he is our first one.
Yes, sir. I feel like it's a milestone in Travis and Vic's Drunken Horror Adventures history, man.
Well, we had a vampire. People that considered her a vampire, even though obviously, she wasn't, with Elizabeth Bathory. We've got a cannibal now. We had somebody that posed bodies. We had the lady killer. We've had the killer clown. We had H.H. Holmes. We're really churning these bad boys out. But, Dahmer, when we started this thing, you had to know Dahmer was coming, and we get it on Thanksgiving week. How appropriate.
Yes, and this isn't a coincidence. This is something that, hey, Travis came to me one day and was like, Dahmer, Thanksgiving, it all makes sense. So here we are, Thanksgiving week. We're talking about a real, true blood feast.
So I'm sitting here with Dahmer's stats in front of me and his timeline. And, of course, my good buddies at the Department of Psychology at Radford University in Radford, Virginia, put this bad boy together. And, it's pretty damn extensive, I just have to say. We're talking about 8 pages worth of stuff on Dahmer. And, things really began for him, I guess. It's really hard to pinpoint, I guess, whenever this shit started with him. But it sounds like when he was a kid, it's not so much that he would like torture animals, because that seems to be not the thing for him, but he was definitely obsessed with their dead bodies or death in general.
Yeah, so in the when I watched his interview earlier, he said that he was just fascinated with the insides of the dead animal. And whenever he went to ninth grade, he would, like, in biology, they would dissect animals or whatever, and he would, like, take the skeletons home. And he just liked killing animals, and then that love grew into wanting to kill people.
Along those lines, when he was 23 years old, Vic, I don't know if you know this or not, but he actually worked at a plasma center in Milwaukee, and he took home a vial of blood, and then he drank it, and he never tried it again. So I guess blood doesn't taste that good, at least to the Milwaukee Cannibal, the man that worked at a chocolate factory. Blood a little bit too salty for him, I assume.
That's pretty awesome, actually.
And one of the things that we actually have in common with Mr. Dahmer is he liked to drink quite a bit. In fact, that was one of the reasons why he was kicked out of the military, was his excessive drunkenness. And he had a few run-ins, like at the Wisconsin State Fair, for drunken disorderly conduct, and fined $50 for it. But I mean, if you look throughout his history, alcohol remains one of the pervasive things in Dahmer's life, especially later on. He started drinking when he was like 13.
Hey, Travis, we now have a call on from Florida, so I'm assuming this is our guest.
Yes, we do.
What is up, Art? How you doing, sir?
Hey, Travis, and it's Vic. I haven't met you yet.
It's very good to have you. So we talked the other day, and of course, people weren't privy to that conversation. But since that time, I've gotten to kind of, look over the story of Adam Walsh a little bit more in detail, and
cool.
We're going to get into that for sure. But before we do all that, can you kind of introduce yourself to the people that that are listening, maybe aren't familiar with you?
Okay, not everyone's familiar with me. That's really this is not a good way to start. Okay, I am Arthur J. Harris. You may call me Art, as you already have. That Arthur J. Harris is my authorial name as well as my full given name. And I am a true crime writer from Florida. I've written 5 books, including 2 about Adam Walsh, which turned into a set of books about Jeffrey Dahmer, which was, as we discussed, not the original intent, but I came to learn a great deal about Dahmer. First, my books are very research-heavy. This is journalism. This isn't speculation. This is stuff that in these books that you generally don't know about these cases, including stuff about Dahmer that you have, unless you know what I put out, you do not know this material. It's not just cribbed from somebody else and on the internet and the same old stuff. Mm-hmm. So that is the sort of work I do. I do know the work, the cases that I take on. They are homicides, or I look at the police and prosecutorial cases and see if they pass. If they did everything right, and likely as not, there are serious flaws in the way that these cases were investigated, and I am basically looking over, and I get the actual public records that were produced by police and prosecutors, no prosecutors, especially in this case, because it didn't go to trial. And then I do my own investigation on top of that.
Can you kind of talk about what got you into the true crime portion of it, and how it kind of turned into more than just reporting on true crime, writing about true crime, but I mean really investigating and trying to figure out things that nobody else had?
Well, I've been a journalist all career, and for reasons poorly explained, I like it down here in southern Florida. I suppose it's our 5 really good months of weather. supposedly 7 rest of the year, months of weather. And to be here in the 80s and 90s was, if you're looking for something to write about, then crime was the thing to do. And I'm still stuck in the 80s for my cases. They've just taken this long to get as far deeply into them as I have. There are fascinating cases here. This is also a great state for public records. You can get them. You can ask for them by statute, and then when you know how to work the public records racket, then you can get them. And so that's that plus that an awful lot of my friends here are lawyers and criminal attorneys and stuff. So I learned the criminal law and the criminal procedure, and certainly could have gone to law school, but I decided, I think correctly, not to have done that. The stories are interesting. The legal procedure and all that is really stressful and really not that. It can be lucrative or can not be, and it's hard. It takes away the fun, most of the fun, I think, of just getting the story and investigating and then seeing what the real story might be, rather than what it was decided on by police and prosecutors, and often enough. And those are the really deep cases, the ones that take a long time and have been investigated by the authorities for years and years, and because they were hard. They were really difficult cases. The regular old case is one thing. This is where the system gets stressed. I want to see the system under stress, how well it performs or how not well it performs.
You bring up a great point, or so many great points there, and I guess it would probably, lead us in properly to the Adam Walsh case. This is, something, maybe if you're outside of Florida, maybe you're not familiar with it, so if you could introduce us, to that case and maybe what, kind of drew your attention to that, and then kind of move forward with the story as however you want to tell it, of course.
Okay. All right. Adam Walsh in 1981 in the summer was 6 years old, 6.5, and living in the suburbs with his parents, one of whom became quite famous in the after that. His parents were John and Reve Walsh. Adam was a cute little 6-year-old, and that summer day, his mom said that she took him to the Sears, which was the closest store in the shopping mall, very near, 5-minute drive from where they lived in their home. And they passed the video game display in Sears. That was a new and very hot thing at the time. And kid wanted to play there, and Mom wanted to shop for a lamp and said, "I'll be back in just a couple of minutes, 5 or so minutes." And as she told the story later, she said 5 or so minutes later, she came back and the child is not there. And when she looked through the surrounding areas, the rest of the store, and then the mall, child's still not there. So she asked for assistance, and then eventually called the police, and called her husband and other friends and stuff, and they were looking for him, and they never found him at or near the mall. So that's 1981. 2 weeks later to the day, 2 fishermen in a canal about 125 miles north of here. This is Hollywood, Florida, which, by the way, I had, 3 years earlier, I was working for the newspaper, the daily paper in Hollywood, Florida. It's between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And there's 2 fishermen found a child's severed head floating. And they call the authorities, and in those 2 weeks, the big media story, the community is searching for the child every day. The top of the news is Adam Walsh, and no clues,